Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to begin by thanking committee co-chairs, Senators Hatch and Brown, and all the members of the committee for the opportunity to participate in today's hearings. You all volunteered, or at least I hope you all volunteered, for this important assignment, and I applaud your willingness to tackle one of the most important issues of the day, retirement security. My testimony and any answers I provide singularly reflect my own views and not the views of Morgan Lewis or any of its individual clients. My name is Tim Lynch, and I'm the Senior Director of Morgan Lewis's Government Relations Group. Of more relevance to today's hearing, I'm a member of our Multi-Employer Pension Working Group, a group that includes attorneys who have experience counseling both contributing employers and multi-employer pension plans in a wide range of industries, including trucking, construction, bakery, maritime, and supermarkets, both wholesale and retail. We have assisted a number of critical and declining multi-employer plans in navigating the MEPRA process, including Road Carriers Local 707 Fund and the New York State Teamsters Conference Pensions and Retirement Fund, the latter being the largest fund receiving approval from the Treasury and PBGC. It's because of that depth of experience we were asked by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to assist in the preparation of two recent reports, Multi-Employer Pension Crisis, the History, and Businesses and Jobs at Risk. My background is primarily in transportation and trucking. I've been involved in that industry since the enactment of the Motor Carrier Act of 1980, the act that deregulated the trucking industry. The Motor Carrier Act transformed the entire trucking industry. The 1980 MEPA legislation dramatically impacted the unionized portion of the industry. Prior to 1980, 94 of the 100 largest freight hauling companies in the United States had a collective bargaining agreement with the Teamsters under the National Master Freight Agreement. By the mid-1990s, that number was reduced to 6. For certain, some of that reduction was due to consolidation, but the overwhelming majority was as a result of bankruptcy. And since 1980, not a single mid to large-sized trucking company has entered the market with a collective bargaining agreement with the Teamsters to replace all of those other trucking companies who have exited the market. In other words, no new contributing employers to cover an ever-increasing number of beneficiaries. Fast forward to 2014 and the Multi-Employer Pension Reform Act. Congress gave plan trustees some powerful tools to address the funding crisis, the ability to adjust benefits, the ability to seek a partitioning of beneficiaries, assistance for facilitation of plan mergers, and financial support. MEPRA was signed into law in December 2014, and plan trustees in critical and declining status immediately had to begin planning for how to utilize the new tools in the toolbox to address the funding crisis. The Treasury website for tracking applications for benefit suspensions identifies the Central States Plan as being the first MEPRA application filed on September 25, 2015. Technically true. However, the first application filed was by Road Carriers 707 on December 14, 2014, the date of enactment of MEPRA. The filing was in the form of a letter, I believe it was 3 sentences long, intended to dramatize the need for Treasury and PBGC to move expeditiously on the process because time was not on the side of the local 707 fund. The fund formally filed on March 15th and eventually was denied, the principal reason being the fund could not demonstrate the proposed actions would allow the fund to avoid insolvency. Unfortunately, the local 707 fund went insolvent in February 2017. Consider this, the very same week in December of 2016, that the notice went out to the plan participants that the fund was going to be terminated, or not terminated, excuse me, was insolvent in February, the fund was also obligated to send out the 13th check because they were not in a position to suspend any of the benefit. The New York State Teamsters Conference Pension and Retirement Fund has a better ending, but the process to obtain approval is nonetheless instructive. The New York Fund withdrew its initial application and refiled. Among the issues that the New York Fund had to deal with was a mortality table, whether it was appropriate for the calculation of benefit modifications. The correspondence was as time-consuming and potentially pushed the fund into a more precarious financial position. These funds had unique circumstances, but one constant, time. A delay, or worse, a denial, simply puts more plans and the benefits of plan beneficiaries at risk. That was the history, but it holds true today. Action is necessary sooner rather than later. The current framework for evaluating the financial status of multi-employer pension plans utilizes 5 categories. As the committee begins to consider a course of action, it might be useful to contemplate what it hopes to accomplish with each of the zones and the plans that are in them. The temptation for green zone plans undoubtedly is simply to leave them alone, and that may very well be the prudent course of action. But you should consider, are there changes that could be made to help ensure that those plans remain healthy? For yellow and orange zone plans, I would suggest the goal should be to provide as many tools as possible and as quickly as possible to the plan trustees. This could include the additional tool of hybrid plans as outlined in the GROW Act legislation. Conversely, the committee should be cautious about adopting procedural changes that, while well-intentioned, could have the adverse impact of pushing these plans into the red zone. For the red zone plans, there is no avoiding the reality that they need a large infusion of cash to remain solvent. Central states achieved a 12.7.4 rate of return in 2017, but it doesn't take a mathematician to calculate the benefit of a 12% return on $15 billion in assets, or $13 billion, or $11 billion, or less. Finally, in my view, the tools given to the plan trustees under MEPR have been underutilized. Only 5 benefit suspension applications have been approved. Only 1 application for petitioning has been approved, and I am aware of no efforts to fully utilize the merger language. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have.